seem like we're going one step forward, two steps back, and Iran is changing, the goal line.
Yes, good morning, Edie. It is. I mean, I was just in Israel last week, and we were up on the border of Lebanon, and it's definitely volatile, but Hezbollah has to be eradicated there. They just simply continue to bomb and throw missiles into Israel. We were there, saw some of the Iron Dome capabilities, shooting down incoming artillery from Hezbollah. And it's a real problem. And of course, it's a delicate balance. President Trump is doing a remarkable job of balancing all of these pieces related to Iran. Iran is the big piece that has to be resolved in all of this. But at the same time, lives are being lost with Hezbollah continuing to shoot at Israel.
Congressman, yesterday Axios had an explosive report claiming that President Trump dropped multiple F-bombs in a heated phone call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The president was asked about that in a recent podcast. Watch.
Axios reported that you had a phone call with Bibi Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, in which you were angry with him. You said, "Are you effing crazy? What are you effing doing? I helped you stay out of jail." Is that true? Did you speak to him in those terms?
I did. I wouldn't say angry. I was a little bit perturbed at his constantly fighting with Lebanon. I've worked very well together. I like Bibi a lot, and I've worked very well with him. We had I'm a wartime president. He's a wartime prime minister.
Congressman, so it does seem that the president, and to be fair, the Israelis are not fighting with Lebanon, they're fighting with Hezbollah. Hezbollah has significant influence in Lebanon. The president does seem to have an issue with that. What's your message to the White House about Israel's right to defend itself against an Iranian proxy?
Well, I know that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have a very strong relationship. I mean, Israel is America's greatest ally, definitely in the Middle East and maybe even in the world at this point because of their capabilities and the partnership that we have. This is a working relationship. We both know that Prime Minister Netanyahu is doing everything he can to protect his country, along with the partnership with the United States. And President Trump is doing everything he can to take the head of the snake off in Iran. And so it's a working relationship. I kind of compare it to The Office. There's times when I get frustrated with my brother and we have, frank words with each other. But that's a good working relationship. So that way we understand each other, what the important priority is as we try to solve a problem.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's frustrated because Iran throws that in there. It's kind of like at the last minute. And you've got to stop that, too, knowing that there's much less opportunity to control another country. The Washington Post had an exclusive article this morning, and you happen to be right in the middle of it. The headline reads, GOP lawmakers push to make Israel pay for U.S. weapons with Netanyahu's blessing. And it goes on to say, inside the Prime Minister Netanyahu's office in Jerusalem last week, Marlon Stutzman handed him a short stack of papers that effectively called for the United States to stop providing military aid to Israel for free. Stutzman, a steadfast Israel ally, on Wednesday is introducing a resolution to end the $3.8 billion in annual aid Israel receives from the U.S. Now, can you elaborate a bit on that and what the response was?
Sure. No, Edie, this was not a surprise to Prime Minister Netanyahu. In fact, he was on 60 Minutes a couple of weeks ago, and he publicly announced that Israel is wanting to move away from that aid. We're calling it aid to trade legislation, where we move from sending $3.8 billion of U.S. taxpayers to Israel. Now, in turn, they buy 90% back. They send that money back to the United States. But it becomes a stumbling block for some people, and I think that this is an approach that we can take that will just continue to mature the relationship with Israel. As I said, I was in Israel last week. I'm so incredibly impressed with how that country continues to grow. They're approaching $1 trillion GDP, 10 million people living in the country. It's a tech hub in the Middle East. It's a growing economy. And Prime Minister Netanyahu said, you know what, we can stand on our own feet. We want to be able to, we want to be seen as partners with the United States and not someone who depends on the United States. And so this aid to trade effort, I think, is the right move at the right time.
All right, Congressman Marlon Stutzman, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
President Trump issuing a series of late-night endorsements in 6 states ahead of Tuesday.